All right, welcome back, Powers on Sports podcast. Well, we are finally here, that time of year, NFL training camps. We've gotten through the draft, OTAs, mini camp. Now we are finally here. The fellas are back on campus starting this week. Handful of teams report this week, and the vast majority of the NFL will report at some point early next week to start their official training camps. And no better person to talk NFL training camps in NFC South than Greg Auman, longtime NFL reporter. He's now covering the NFL for Fox Sports. He's a longtime member of the Tampa Bay sports media down here, but now he's covering more than just the Tampa Bay market. So welcome in, Greg.
Hey, thanks for having me. Hope you're doing well.
I'm doing well. I appreciate it. First question. What's the best and worst part about covering training camps for a guy like you that does it on a kind of daily basis?
Yeah, the best part is that you have something to actually write about. I mean, the second half of summer, post draft, post free agency is just a lot of storylines, and practices don't mean a whole lot. And this is really the start of things that matter. And you get through a couple of weeks of practices, you have preseason games, and then it starts really in earnest. So no, the most exciting part is just having things, the idea that every day there's something big that could happen. There's something real to write about. That's the cool part. You enjoy the downtime, but I think from a professional standpoint, you're ready for things to happen. That's probably the best part. Worst part, I'm in Florida, in Tampa, so it's good and hot. The Bucks have a pretty good setup where we're well covered if we want to, in terms of having shade, which always helps.
Right.
I got a big old floppy bucket hat that keeps me from getting quite as burnt as I could be. And the Bucks go early, which is nice too. I can't say how cool it is to have 8:30, 9:30 practices where before it really, really gets hot, you're back inside and kind of get your reporting done early in the day, which is nice too.
How do you handle, now that you've got a more than just the Bucks to cover? How do you manage your time as far as getting video interviews, stuff like that from the other teams that you cover?
Yeah, it's a challenge, and it's something I'm still kind of figuring out. I'm still basically in my first year through the job covering the entire division, and it's hard to cover teams when you're not in the city they're in, just because you're not as present, you're not there, you're not you don't have that recognition factor you have with players and coaches when you're in the locker room every day. So just trying to get to the other teams as much as I can. Preseason is good for that. I think the Falcons have a game on a Sunday where it can get, Atlanta's nice. You can fly up to Atlanta for like $80 round trip.
Right.
Found another deal that I think the Saints have another game that's just a day separate from the rest of the division, where I'll get to New Orleans. I think that's the Rams, maybe. No, the Chiefs, maybe. I think they go there. So
Right.
Just trying to get to these cities. It's like I was going to try and get to Carolina for the first day of their training camp. I'm not sure if I'll do that or not, but you just want to get, in-person time with these players, with these coaches. And then, still mapping out where you're going to be each week, what the most compelling game to cover is. Last year with Brady, I think it made it easy to kind of default to the Bucks and everything they did, unless you had a more compelling game somewhere else. So now it's probably a little less that case.
Yep.
I'm still mapping things out in the second half of the season because we don't know who's going to be good, who's going to be bad. But
Sure.
it's neat to try and kind of get some coverage of everybody, but allow yourself the flexibility to kind of ride the hot hand when a team gets going.
For sure, for sure. Interesting division, the NFC South. You got four brand new starting quarterback situations all over the division. That's probably the only division in football that can say that there's going to be four brand new starters. You got three of the four head coaches that you could make the arguments kind of on the hot seat a little bit, other than maybe Frank Reich in Carolina. Everybody else has kind of got some expectation and some wonder, can they do the job or not? How do you see just your overall thought of the NFC South as we start? You got obviously Bryce Young, the number one pick in the draft. You got, the battle down here in Tampa, Baker and Kyle Trask. You got Atlanta with uncertainty at quarterback and kind of the coach. We don't know what's going on there. Just talk about the division in general that you see some coming in.
Yeah, it's tough to project just because two things. One, it's still insanely tightly bunched. I mean, a year ago you had one win separating first and last.
Yeah.
And the team that won is probably the team that improved the least in Tampa Bay. And then there's so much that's new, like you said. Basically, four new quarterbacks. I mean, the dean of the division is Desmond Ridder, who has 4 career starts. Everybody else is pretty much brand new. And honestly, a lot of coaches. 1 new head coach, 5 new coordinators in the division, to where you don't even know necessarily what to see or what to expect from a scheme standpoint. So I'd probably start with Carolina right now. I think everybody has a weakness. Everybody has a a flaw, if you will. Carolina has a rookie quarterback. No quarterback drafted number 1 overall has ever won a division title in the NFL. So Bryce Young probably has as good a shot as anybody just because the division he's in and the fact that 8 wins got it done a year ago. New Orleans, did so well to get Derek Carr and bring him in, to bring in Jamal Williams, to probably weather a difficult spring of free agency better than I thought they would.
Right.
Their defense is getting old. They need guys like Cam Jordan and Demario Davis and Tyrann Mathieu to not act their age, to kind of continue to play at a level that guys their age don't normally play. But it's something
Mike Thomas to stay healthy. A guy like Mike Thomas to actually get on the field and
play.
play.
Michael Thomas healthy. There's lots of offensive weapons they can have if Kamara isn't suspended that long. There's lots of what ifs on offense for that team. You look at Atlanta, and again, a big question mark at quarterback is we don't really know what Desmond Ridder is going to be, but you probably have the number 1 run game in the NFL. You have a much improved defense, probably 5 or 6 new starters there. But again, Art Smith's probably on the bubble. If he doesn't exceed that 7-10 mark this year, he might be in trouble. Tampa Bay, again, lost so much, not just Brady, but a lot of other veteran types. I think 11 of their 13 oldest players from last year are gone. So they'll be a much younger team, a much less experienced team. But I also feel like Tampa Bay has a chance to kind of flip the script. And that last year, expectations were so high.
Right.
And even though they won the division, they really fell short of those in losing in the first round of the playoffs with Tom Brady as your quarterback. And now I feel like, there's very little expectations around this team, to where if Baker Mayfield can click and get back to his best self, it would be really easy for this Bucs team to exceed expectations now. So all 4 teams, I wouldn't pick any one to be 2 games above the rest. I think it's going to come down to the end, and it's just going to come down to who can win their division games in the last 2-3 weeks of the season.
Do you anticipate this being a 9-win division winner? The winner of the division is probably at 9-8.
If it's, 10-7 wins. All it takes is, if you sweep one division opponent,
right?
This is a division this year where they're going to face the AFC South. So chances are you're getting Anthony Richardson. Chances are you're getting, CJ Stroud.
Right.
We don't know how long Tennessee's going to stick with Tannehill. You could have a young quarterback there too.
Right.
Everybody in this division plays Jordan Love. Green Bay could be a 10-win team, or they could be a 6-win team. We really don't know how they'll be in the post-Rodgers era. So it seems to me that the teams that can handle the young quarterbacks that are all over these schedules are probably the ones that are in best shape to win the division.
Give me a couple of breakout players, just maybe not the star guys, but give me a couple, 2 or 3 breakout players in the division that you could really see making a big jump here in 2023.
Yeah, Saints, honestly, Jamal Williams is a newcomer here, but scored more touchdowns than anybody in the league. Somebody at receiver will jump out. I think Olave is still their number 1, but whether it's a healthy Michael Thomas coming back, getting back to even close to where he was 17, 18, 19 would be huge for them. Rashid Shaheed could be another guy that steps up for them. In Atlanta, I think it's probably a comeback year for Kyle Pitts. I think this is probably a year he gets back and looks like the guy they wanted him to have, especially in the end zone. For him to have 3 touchdowns in 2 years is crazy. But I think if he's healthy, if he has the weapons around him with Drake London and Bijan Robinson now, Tyler Algier, he's a guy that could really have a big step forward there. Carolina, I don't know who Carolina jumps out with. Mingo is their 2nd-round pick, is a guy that could really step up. I think a lot of the attention is on the veteran guys they brought in terms of, bringing in older guys, but guys that have really played well in this league. He's a guy that could step up even as a 3 and really do well there. Tampa Bay, obviously a lot of eyes are on Rachaad White. That's not really a surprising pick there, but they want to be better in their run game, and he's easily the best they have. So I would say he's the guy probably in best position. Everybody knows Evans and Godwin, but he could be a really strong number 3 there in terms of their offensive weapons and guys that could be better than they were last year.
Let's go to the NFL in whole here. Let's talk just a couple NFL in general topics. Where do you think this Gruden in the NFL story goes? We had the big story last week out of Don Van Natta about the whole emails and all that stuff. What do you think what is the next step in this process with Gruden in the NFL?
I don't know. It's one of those where, I don't know who else can bring it down. Obviously, there's a lot of other people that had emails that were probably damning the way Gruden was kind of scuttled with those. But we're never going to see them all. It's one of those where whoever got these out to us was probably pretty careful with who was exposed by them. Daniel Snyder is going to be gone. That takes care of one big part of this. I don't know whether it's one of those where once the sale's complete and he's gone, it's out of sight, out of mind, or whether people are still going back and forth about that. Gruden's in a tough spot in that he is not that far removed from $100 million contract,
Right.
and needs to find somebody in some position that gives him a first step back. And every time you can get back, even if it's not as a head coach, just as an assistant somewhere, you make yourself a little less radioactive. Still a great coach, still a personality people really liked. Just said enough things to piss enough people off where he's
Right.
untouchable right now. He's still here in Tampa. I see him around town sometimes.
Yep.
But again, it's one of those where, from a football standpoint, the league's certainly better with him in it, but he's got to get over some of the bridges that have to be mended, I guess, with that right now. I don't know if there's any more penalty against Washington institutionally, right, against Bruce Allen and anybody else. There's lots of other people that are involved to some extent.
Do you get the sense? I mean, obviously, if fans that didn't keep up, he was in New Orleans this offseason for a little bit of time helping Dennis Allen. Do you get the sense that Gruden would come back as a coordinator?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, it's one of those where, I mean, he's a guy that's, up early.
He got an opportunity,
watching film. You hear about different people coming in just to hang out. Carson Wentz was hanging out with him watching tape.
Right.
To where I don't think it takes very much to convince him to do something. It's just a matter of whether he's ready to be back to a level of public scrutiny, to add people asking about things he said and written and done. I think he does want to get back. It's one of those where he's done enough and won enough and made enough where he don't have to. But I think he's still also young enough as a coach where you don't necessarily want to just fade away from the spotlight in the sport the way he has. I don't know. I guess I'll be curious to see what comes of it and how long it takes him to get back in the good graces of the league.
What is your sense of what's the next big NFL league story, or what's the next big thing coming here, whether it's in training camp or at some point this year? What do you sense is the next big NFL story?
Yeah, I mean, immediately it's just going to be where all these running backs land. I mean, they have all these talented running backs in Zeke Elliott, and you think about Leonard Fournette still being unsigned. Dalvin Cook is still unsigned.
Kareem Hunt. Yeah.
Those are four guys that should be on NFL rosters. They're probably not 1,200-yard rushers anymore, but they're going to make somebody better. And it's a big thing that's going to come out here in the next week or two as these camps start. Beyond that, I'm just curious to see how things shake out. I mean, it's one of those where, now with the Chiefs back as defending champs, I think the Eagles have so much back. It'll be curious to see which teams can emerge as the challengers on both sides, and I think Buffalo's probably right there. On the NFC side, I'll be curious to see who steps up to kind of fill a void there. AFC East is just stacked as a division. That's probably, when I look at divisions and what are the most impressive. I mean, to have Buffalo back, to have Miami upgraded, to have the Jets now with Aaron Rodgers and upgraded. Right. The Patriots are probably a hard fourth in that four right now. I mean, this will be neat in that a year ago was kind of the Russell Wilson stuff. Deshaun Watson came in a little later. So now to see Aaron Rodgers, and obviously a lot of eyes will be on them with Hard Knocks, just with Aaron Rodgers in New York. That'll be a major storyline, period, for the next 4 months. If they're successful, it's the Jets in the playoffs, which is wild. If they're not, I think Aaron Rodgers is one of those where a lot of people just want to watch him struggle when he struggles too. So that'll be one of the overriding storylines of this season, good or bad.
And I don't know if you'll be there, but the Buccaneers go up to New York to practice with the Jets for a couple of days before they play in the preseason. So that'll be interesting. I don't know if that's on your calendar, but
no, I'd like to. I don't think we've got probably have our Jets writer up there doing that.
I got
the AFC East writer, but the Jets actually get 2 NFC South teams for joints. So I think the NFC South is going to be cameos all over Hard Knocks, because I think they get the Panthers the week before they host the Bucs in New York. But yeah, it'll be fun to see. Obviously, it's one of those where all eyes are on the Jets, but it'll be neat to see kind of who's in the background and the practice shots and the stuff we don't necessarily catch in real time watching them.
All right, Greg, we'll get the sunscreen out, get the bucket hat ready, do a little La Teresita lunch one of these days, from chicken and yellow rice and all that good stuff. I appreciate the time. Tell everybody where they can find all your great work online.
Yeah, foxsports.com. Everything already is there. Getting ready for lots of stuff coming here in the next week. It's going to be pretty much daily content starting a week from now. And then I'm on Twitter at my name, Greg Auman, AUMAN. On Threads now, I guess I should point that out. On Instagram, just about everything else. Thanks again for having me on, though. I appreciate
it. You got it. Greg does great work. He's been doing it a long time, and he is very much of a dialed in with a lot of these teams. So I appreciate the time, Greg, and have a great start of training camp. We'll talk to you soon.
See ya.